The man of letters was a manifestation of the esprit philosophique of the modern age. He did not aspire towards universal knowledge, yet had the critical and linguistic ability to make any field of study his own. Until recently, the man of learning was kept out of society, secluded in the monastery or university. Now his writings and his conversation were a necessary part of social life and had contributed to the instruction and polish of the nation. Of all Hume's works, it is his first, a treatise of human nature, that has the most secure place on university reading lists today. But the treatise is anomalous in its sheer difficulty and in the obscurity of its structure and organizing principles. Disappointed by the reception it met with, Hume turned afterwards to the much more popular form of the essay, both as a means of reformatting his theory of human nature and as the medium for his further explorations of morality and of politics. Following the ancient examples of Plato and Cicero and the modern examples of Fontenelle and Shaftesbury, he chose the dialogue form for his most profound consideration of the question of what we can know about the first cause of the universe. He also wrote an enormously successful narrative history of England from the Roman invasion to the Glorious Revolution of 1688. All of these texts will be given due attention here. The listener will find an outline of Hume's career as a man of letters woven into the chapters of this short book. But this is not a biography, and for the full story of Hume's life, it will be necessary to look elsewhere. In the first instance, to Ernest Campbell Mosner's classic, The Life of David Hume. Our main concern here is with Hume's ideas. We begin with his revolutionary theory of human nature, we move on to his no less strikingly innovative discussions of morality and of politics, and we end with his skeptical and subversive philosophy of religion. Chapter 1. Human Nature. David Hume's first published work, A Treatise of Human Nature, originally came in two parts, one on the understanding and the other on the passions. These subjects, Hume told the reader, make a complete chain of reasoning by themselves. The chain of reasoning concerned a question as old as philosophy itself, the question of the relationship between the rational and the emotional elements of human nature. That relationship had often been depicted in terms of antagonism and combat. Individual happiness and social harmony depended, philosophers had often claimed, on reason winning the battle. In the treatise, Hume argued that the whole idea of human nature as site of conflict between reason and passion was a mistake. Properly understood, reason was not a faculty of mind entirely different and distinct in kind from the passions. Reasoning was often, in fact, nothing but a species of sensation, a matter merely of following our taste and sentiment. But this was nothing to worry about because, taken as a whole, the passions were able to organize and regulate themselves. It is not impossible that this highly unorthodox conception of the fundamental structure of human nature had its source in Hume's own experience of the implausibility of the traditional account of the reason-passion relationship. A letter to a physician. Early in September 1729, when he was 18 and still living in the house he had grown up in, Hume suddenly became a mystery to himself. For 4 years, since he had left college at Edinburgh, he had been engaged in a strenuous and solitary course of study and reflection, with the aim of eventually making his way in the world as a scholar and philosopher. He had worked hard, to the exclusion of almost everything else in life, but he had been happy. Now, though, all his ardour seemed to have deserted him. Suddenly he had no appetite for learning. He felt fine when he put his books to one side, and this made him sure that there was nothing really wrong with him. He was being lazy. He simply needed to work harder. Months passed, and he became aware of physical symptoms indicating that there was more to his condition than mere laziness. He followed the advice of his doctor, took the prescribed medicines, and did more exercise. That helped. He recovered some of his energy and put on a lot of weight. But in the spring of 1734, 4.5 years later, something was still wrong. When he returned to reading and writing, he continued to be dogged by an inability to concentrate. He worried that he would never be able to realize his ambitions. He worried that somehow he had damaged himself with the intensity of his application to his studies. Unable to understand what he was going through, Hume wrote, without revealing his name, to one of the most famous doctors of the day, asking whether his case was a common one, whether he could hope to recover, how long it would take, and how complete a recovery would be. Hume's endeavours in his teenage years